do not need to be fixed. There is no more fixing that needs to be done. How many of you have spent countless hours and dollars going to mindset coaching and going through somatic breathing exercises and doing all the shadow work and the retreats and all of that, right? For years, only to find yourself still feeling so lost and incomplete. How many of you have done the childhood wounds, right? Gone through the healing with that, maybe even saw a therapist, right? How many of you have gone through what you think was what would crack you open and move you forward to the future that you want and to the person that you fully want to be? And yet, still, here you are trying to figure out who you really are at your core and what is meant for you. What's next? What now? I want to tell you that you haven't done anything wrong, right? That is part of the process. But I think that the problem is we think that is the means to the end, and it is not. Hi, my name is Marjorie, and I want to welcome you back to the channel. And if this is your first time, welcome and Happy New Year to everyone. Welcome 2026. Hallelujah, right? So I want to ask you to please, while you're here, like this video, help it reach out to more people, subscribe if you haven't, and if you like what you hear, please do share it with others so that this work can reach more women. Now, a lot of you know that over this past year, I've been sharing my heart and been sharing with you the work of personal evolution. And so I want you to understand what that truly means because the somatic, the shadow work, the mindset stuff, even the awakening that we've most of us have gone through in 2025, that's the beginning. That is just the beginning. And even the remembering, right? We know that 2026 is the year of the great remembering. Many of us are going offline. We're tapping into ourselves and we're remembering ourselves. We're returning to ourselves. And that remembering is bringing about a recognition of the lineage of our ancestors, of the history and the people that came before us and the time before us, and the importance of those stories and that timeline and what that means for us now. The importance of it is to help us activate and tap into the power of who we know. But here's the other thing now that we've remembered, what next? What do we do next? And that's where the personal evolutionary work comes in. This past year really, really asked me to release some things that I thought that I'd be carrying longer. Plans for my future, a particular identity and belief systems about how life is supposed to work for me if I just did everything by the book. But this year, I'm saying goodbye to a lot. I'm saying goodbye to so much. And one of them is over explaining myself. The other is rushing for clarity and understanding of things um, before it's time. And I'm saying goodbye to pretending that what's broken in this world can be fixed with louder voices, better branding, more time on social media. No. Quite frankly, I'm sick and tired of the crisis of information that we are in. And I would even say that we are in a crisis of wisdom because we have been overinformed and we're underrooted. We are hyper connected and yet deeply disconnected. And for women, particularly, we're feeling this acutely. especially those women in the middle of our lives who have done what was asked of us, right? We've raised families, we've built careers, we've gotten all of the degrees, we've had so much success under our belt, we've carried emotional labor, kept things running, only to find out in the end that all of this performance and efforting inside the system that was never designed to sustain us only ended up depleting us. And so, what I want for us as we step into this new year is I want for us to be what they call 10 toes down in who we are and what we are here to do. And I'll tell you what I'm 10 toes down in at this point and stage in my life. I'm choosing depth. I am choosing depth and I am choosing truth over comfort. I'm choosing a type of leadership that shows up in how I live, not in how I present myself to others. I think too many of us are putting on a show. We're putting on a show on social media. We're putting on a show on YouTube, and the viewers are becoming exhausted because they're catching on to that. They can see this is a show, this is a performance, right? And that causes exhaustion because what you're doing is you're giving energy into something you know isn't real, right? And that pulls and extracts from us, right? So that means that we have to take that energy now and honor what's inside of us, honor what's truly needed inside of us at this time. We have to be willing to allow silence when the world feels overwhelming. And we have to learn to listen to our bodies and our inner knowing and those subtle signals that don't always make logical sense, but they're almost always right. Right? So for me, I'm not interested in fixing women. My videos, if you listen to them, they're not about that. That's not what interests me. And I'm sure you don't want to be fixed. I'm interested in helping us remember what we already know about ourselves. And that's the point. That's the gap between the awakening, all of the mindset, somatic, shadow work, right? And your evolutionary work, right? So I want this YouTube channel to become a space where I'm sharing more ideas about that and also on my Substack. So if you don't follow me, please do go to my Substack, which is Marjorie Phoenix or Emergent Leaders. And you'll see that I'm sharing more and I'm writing about this more there. But understanding that the work doesn't end there, right? So, how do we move through? And I want you to know there is no finish line because we are constantly evolving as human beings, as we should. But the evolution is really about what do I know now that I didn't know before? And now, what do I do with this information? Right? Now, we sometimes get to that point of integration, right? About what we know, right? And we know that I have to make a different choice. I have to take a different action, right? I know all of this, but now moving through it. And I talk a lot about these threshold moments, right? This is a part of that threshold because it's almost like the threshold is like a pathway. You're constantly moving through it. And so when you move through this threshold, you're at each point, there is what I'm calling identity disruption. So if you truly, truly want to evolve and to step into who you fully are, It's someone you've never been before, never met before, but is there, right? In a strange way. The person is there within you. You can feel it. Then you have to do this disidentification, this identity disruption. And I liken it to, just if you visualize this for a moment, think about this: your old identity, your new identity in a Western film where they walk, a few feet away, they both have their hands on the gun. Which one is going to live? And they turn around, but no one's shooting the gun. Now, the old identity, they're quicker on the draw. They don't want to go anywhere. The new identity hasn't fully felt grounded in who they are. So they're hesitant because there's so much comfort still here. There's so much familiarity in the old. And we stay there even when we go through our awakening, even when we go through this remembering, right? This remembrance, we still have this challenge there. And so to really get to the transformation, you have to be able to alchemize a lot of these things that will continue to come up for you, right? And I am saying as well that there comes a point where you have to figure out what your allegiance is to. What is your allegiance to? Is your allegiance to yourself? Or is your allegiance to the system that has just been built out there that you've become so comfortable in? The stories, the narratives, the routines, the way of life, the beliefs. Is that where your allegiance going to be? So your allegiance going to be to your new identity that moves you away from exhaustion and disillusionment, performance, overproducing, right? So when you understand that, you then make a choice. It was all about choice. It was all about choice. And many of us are not willing to make it. That's why the old identity keeps showing up for us. So the awakening, the remembering, brings us to a place of integration and alchemizing, right? And so, what does that look like? Many of us, when we get to that stage to alchemize, we'll realize that I know this thing, but I still do the opposite, right? I know a thing, but I'm still doing this. And so you have to start asking yourself, what must change in how you live now that you know what you know, right? What version of myself can I no longer be performing that I need to just put to the side? Ask yourself these questions and answer them. Now, once you have that information and you know that, I know that I want to get in better shape, just using that as a quick example, but I still eat the junk food, I still don't get enough sleep, and I'm not exercising, right? So that is what will be triggered. You have, and this is why I'm saying we're on information overload at this point, right? And so we have to go deeper about how we're showing up each and every day. And integration is very much cognitive in nature, right? Everything is up here. We're very much aware. We've got all the information. The other part now is the next step is what? Embodiment. You hear a lot of people talk about this, right? We talk about embodiment all the time. What does that mean? It means truly stepping in to that new identity. That is a different depth and speed. It is somatic in nature, but it's also about this being. It's about now your nervous system. Lots of talk about regulated nervous system. Now, understand this. There's a lot more to do with regulating your nervous system than just about your boundaries and your habits and your rest and your breathing and exposure. Your nervous system is also very much attached to your belief systems. So at this point, this is why the integration part is so important because now you're looking at your beliefs. And so you cannot totally embody if you're still bringing in, let me correct that. You could have some of those beliefs. You could. But I would say you won't have as many, right? Your belief system has definitely been worked over. And so you are you're like maybe not 10 toes, but maybe you're about 6, 7 toes down in it, right? And so this is where you really want to um, move and walk in that person every single day. And every day as you do it, you will expand and you will find that you are truly becoming. Now, this right here is the evolution because now you look different, you sound different, you're doing things different. That is a part of the evolution. Not everyone wants evolution. Many of you want relief. And so that's why you'll continue to do the somatic work, the shadow work, the healing work, like and that's fine. But if you truly want to evolve, if you truly want to be a different person and you want to live a different life, then you've got to take it even further. Evolutionary work means you cannot return to who you were because your orientation to reality has changed. You look at things differently. The way you see things, it's all changed. Recognition alone doesn't change how you choose, and it doesn't reorganize your life, your relationships, or your work, or your pace, or even your sense of responsibility. What starts to happen is your old goals, they lose their power. They don't look the same, right? You can't go back to the way things were, right? And you cannot longer hide behind this facade that you've been putting up on this performance that you've had. So eventually, your awareness of all of this is going to ask for allegiance. It's going to ask you to live differently, not just see things differently. It asks your body to hold what your mind has already grasped, and it asks you to move and speak and decide from a place that no longer needs permission. That is when power stops being an idea and it starts becoming something you metabolize. And that's where your life actually begins to change. I don't want to see women going through endless cycles of awakening. I'm not here to have you keep licking your wounds, right? And I'm not here to talk about archetypes from a place of fantasy and stories, right? And I believe in the power of archetypes, the living, historical, and the mythical, because I believe within those is a signal and a force for women to start recognizing and remembering themselves through these stories. So I'm going to be sharing more about the power of these archetypes with you in an upcoming series on feminine archetypes, as a way for you to understand how women have been shaped where power has been diverted and what it actually takes to reclaim authorship of our lives, right? And when I work with archetypes, it's not to give you something you new to identify with. It's to help you recognize patterns that you might already be living inside, right? Maybe unconsciously. And it's to help you loosen the grip of those patterns that those patterns might have on the choices that you're making. But also through these archetypes, they become muses, they become inspirations for us. And there's lessons to be learned for all of them. So I want to close with saying that, your awakening matters, it's important, but that's only the beginning. Your healing matters, but it's not the destination. And the archetypes are important, um, but only as a mirror, right? Not as a mask. This is the evolutionary work. This is what it means to evolve and to live, lead, and love differently. Because in order to do that, you must evolve. And it's not by fixing yourself, but it's by just making a choice and shifting your allegiance to your own authority and the future that you're here to shape. Evolution in consciousness, embodiment, and allegiance. The work of evolution asks more than just for you to have insight about some things. It asks for responsibility and for choice, and it asks for a coherence between what you know and how you live. So, I am Marjorie, and this is the work of remembering who you are before the world told you who to be. I hope to see you again. Bye bye.